Let's talk a little bit about lateral squats. Be sure to stay until the end of this video for visual representations of what everything discussed in the video looks like. So when I think of a lateral squat, I think about the person's ability to transfer weight away from one leg toward the other. So if I am moving into a left lateral squat, for example, I'm thinking about my ability to transfer weight away from the right leg and onto the left leg. So three common things that happen that limit these qualities from happening are the following. So first, load acceptance happens with the feet facing outward and the person's whole leg is biased towards external rotation. Secondly, when transitioning into the load accepting side, the leg and foot externally rotate as a whole or as a unit, and the person rolls onto the outside of their foot. And lastly, the leg that we are transitioning from is kind of just passive in the process. It's not really pushing us over to the opposite side. So, right, these things are probably fine, but if your goal is to train the ability of someone to transfer weight from side to side or from one leg to the other, I might make some minor tweaks and changes to ensure that certain tissues are being loaded throughout the movement. And those tweaks are as follows. One is face both feet forward and think about weight bearing through your sesamoid and medial heel on the leg that you're going into. Second, when transitioning into the load accepting side, only go as far as you can, maintaining those points of contact that I just mentioned. So you should end up with your knee, your sternum, your nose. They should all kind of end up over your big toe with your zipper facing the same direction. And lastly, the leg you are transitioning weight from should be active, as in it should actually be pushing you over to the opposite leg that you are accepting load on. So think about pushing through the medial arch and getting weight from one side over to the other side. So that was a lot of words. I'm going to show you some visual examples of everything that I just mentioned. So if you have been performing lateral squats with yourself or with your clients and you are not getting the results that you are expecting, here are three things that we commonly see people can improve upon. The first is in the setup. So a lot of people will set up with their feet kind of wide, right? Wide and externally rotated with their foot facing in the opposite direction. So when they fall into the position or they push themselves over into the position, it kind of loads the hip structures weird. And like when I'm doing this now, I just feel like a lot of pressure in the front of my knee joint. The second thing that they do, will tend to do is their right leg is just kind of passive in the process, so they're not really transitioning from one leg to the other. It's more that they're falling into the side. So what you'll typically see is the leg that you're pushing away from just kind of stays put, and you ask someone what they feel, and they're going to say, I literally feel nothing in that, maybe like a stretch in my ankle. The last thing that people typically will do that might be limiting them from getting optimal results and loading the appropriate tissue is that when they get into the squat position, right, they start accepting load on the lead leg, is that their whole leg will start to roll outward and they'll roll onto the outside of their foot. So these are the things that I think about typically when I'm coaching this with a person. The first thing is getting the feet facing straight forward. The second thing is making sure we have weight throughout the medial side of our foot. So I'm thinking like big toe, sesamoid bone, and the medial arch. And as I am going into the position, right, the end position of the lateral squat, I'm thinking about my zipper is turning towards the big toe, my sternum, my nose, right, my knee, everything is kind of over the big toe. And I'm only going to go as far as I can while maintaining that position. Because if I go any further, that's when I start to get a deviation in my leg and it starts to feel weird in my hip and my low back. Last thing, right, we're talking about transferring weight from one side to the other. So it's important that the opposite leg is actually active in this process and pushing us to the side that we're trying to go to. So typically what I will cue a person to do here is just make sure that you are pushing through the inside of your foot or push the ground away from the inside of your foot. You don't even have to say inside of your foot, just push the ground away and they'll automatically will do it. And you'll see their foot evert off the ground a little bit and push them into the end position. So I hope this is helpful. If it is helpful and you like these types of videos, just let me know and give me some suggestions about some things that might be useful for you to see from an exercise breakdown technique perspective.